thing he noticed was the smell of oranges. It didn't belong in the apartment anymore. Not since the winter 2 years ago when Mira had stood on a chair by the sink, cheeks sticky with juice, and insisted, hands on hips, 8-year-old solemn, that oranges tasted brighter if you peeled them in one long ribbon. He had thrown the last of that fruit into the trash after the funeral, as if he could starve memory out. Yet here it was again, faint and clean as sunlight on a cutting board, threading through the stale odor of coffee and old newspapers. Carl paused in the narrow hallway, keys still in his hand. The lock clicked behind him with a small, final sound. His coat hung heavy with rain. From the kitchen, the faucet dripped. Slow, patient, keeping time. "Draft again," he muttered, though the windows were shut. He shrugged the coat off and hung it where Mira used to hang her pink one, the hook still a little lower than the rest. The fabric of his coat brushed something light, like a strand of hair. He felt it and turned. On the hook below, the pink coat wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. Only the empty space, the stubborn imprint of a life on the wall. Carl looked away quickly, like a man glancing at the sun. The apartment was quiet except for the rain tapping the fire escape outside and the old radiator hissing as if whispering secrets. The living room light was on. He hadn't left it on. He crossed to the switch and flicked it down. The room fell into a softer gray, washed in the dim afternoon. On the coffee table, a crayon lay sideways across a stack of bills. Not his. He didn't own crayons. He'd thrown those out too. He stared at the waxy stub, sky blue, worn to a blunt cone, until the edges of the room began to swim. Tired, he told himself. He checked his watch. The hand seemed to hesitate. He went into the kitchen. The counters were bare except for the kettle, and beside it, a small plate with 3 orange segments arranged in a crescent moon. The fruit glowed against the white ceramic, slick with moisture. A strand of peel lay curled like a ribbon. Carl's throat tightened, a cord pulled too fast. His fingers hovered above the plate as if heat rose from it. "Lena?" he called, the name leaving him before he could stop it. Silence answered, but not emptiness. The air felt occupied, like a room where someone had just stepped out and left their warmth behind. He listened. He could almost hear the faint scratch of Mira's socks on the floorboards, the way she dragged her feet when she didn't want to go to bed. A drop of water fell into the sink. Another. Carl swallowed and turned the faucet hard, drowning the drip in a rush. The water roared, cold and relentless. He kept it running too long and then snapped it off as if it had said something unforgivable. He ate the orange segments without sitting down, leaning over the counter like a man trying to consume a miracle before it disappeared. They tasted like winter and sunlight and the sting of something too sweet to hold. When he went to rinse the plate, there was lipstick on the rim of his coffee mug. A smudged half-moon in a shade Lena used to wear on evenings when she wanted to feel like herself again. His mug. His fingers left wet fingerprints along the ceramic as he turned it. He didn't remember her wearing lipstick lately. He didn't remember much of anything lately. The phone buzzed in his pocket. Carl pulled it out, grateful for a solid interruption. It was a reminder. Mira, school play, 6:00 p.m. His chest hollowed as if someone had scooped him out. He stared at the screen until his eyes burned. He must have forgotten to delete the old calendar entries. His thumb hovered over the option to dismiss. He didn't press it. He couldn't. It felt like touching a bruise on purpose. Behind him, a chair creaked. Carl turned sharply. The kitchen was empty, chairs tucked neatly under the table. Then slowly, as if moving through thick water, one chair eased back an inch. The sound was unmistakable. Wood against tile. A cautious scrape. Carl's skin prickled along both arms. He took a step forward. "Who's there?" Nothing. He laughed, brittle and quick. This is ridiculous." He set the mug down. The lipstick smudge was gone. Carl blinked hard. "Look away, look back." It returned, faintly, like a bruise under makeup, like a thing deciding whether to be seen. He backed out of the kitchen and into the hallway. The mirror by the door caught him. Damp hair, hollow eyes, the shadow of unshaved jaw. Behind him, in the mirror, something small moved. A child's silhouette, dark against the lighter wall. passing through the doorway. His breath snagged. He spun around, and the hallway was empty. The only movement, the slight sway of his coat as if someone had brushed it. "Stop it," he said, voice low. The words weren't directed at anyone in particular. "Stop." He pressed his palms to his eyes until the bones of his skull ached, until sparks flared behind his lids. When he lowered his hands, the apartment was ordinary again. Quiet, gray, unremarkable. Just him. Just rain. But the smell of oranges lingered, tender and insistent. Carl went into Mira's room. He hadn't meant to. He avoided it the way sailors avoid certain waters. Yet his feet carried him down the short hall, past the bathroom where Mira used to leave toothpaste globs in the sink, to the door at the end. It was cracked open, though he always kept it shut. He remembered closing it this morning. He remembered the click. The room inside was dim, curtains drawn, dust caught in the strip of light from the hall like slow falling snow. The bed was made too neatly, the stuffed rabbit propped against the pillow. He had placed it there months ago, arranging the room like a museum exhibit. Touch nothing, disturb nothing, preserve the wound. On the floor, in the middle of the rug, was a piece of paper. A drawing. Carl stepped closer, the air changing as if he'd entered a different season. The paper was crisp and new, not yellowed like the old ones he'd kept in a box. The drawing showed a man with a long body and square shoulders. His face was a simple curve of smile. Beside him stood a small girl in a dress, holding his hand. Above them, a son. In the corner, in uneven letters, Dad plus me. His knees loosened. He crouched and picked it up carefully, as if the graphite might smear into nothing. The child's hand in the drawing was colored blue, the same blunt sky blue crayon stub from the coffee table. A waxy, bright blue that Mira always chose for hands and skies, and sometimes for tears because she'd said once, "Blue can mean lots of things, not just sad." Carl held the paper to his chest. The sound that came out of him wasn't quite a sob, not quite a laugh. It was the noise a person makes when the world has just shifted and his body hasn't caught up. His phone buzzed again. Another notification. This time it wasn't a reminder. It was a text from Lena. She used to hate dark, remember? Last night, I hear her laughing in the hallway. I think she is still here. Do you hear her too? Home. The word had become a place without coordinates. He didn't answer. He couldn't. Anthor texts show up from Lena. I tried to go today. I stood there for a long time. But I couldn't take last step. I just can't do it alone. I'm not saying we are getting back, but I need you that moment. The room swam with the weight of the drawing, the smell of old cotton and dust, the rabbit's glass eyes watching him with an accusation that felt like tenderness. A soft thump came from inside the closet. Carl froze. The closet door was closed. White paint chipped along the edge where Mira used to wedge her toes and pull it open, playing hide and seek even when no one wanted to play. The thump came again, smaller, like a fist against cardboard. His mouth went dry. "Mice," he whispered. "It's mice." He stood and crossed the room, each step measured, as if the floor might give way. The closet was right there, unremarkable, ordinary, except the air around it seemed denser, holding its breath. Carl placed his palm on the door. The wood was cold. Behind it, something shifted. A faint rustle. Fabric. The whisper of paper. Then, very softly, a sound like a child trying not to cry. Carl's hand jerked back as if burned. His heart pounded in his ears, drowning out the rain, the radiator, the rest of the world. "Mira," he said, and the name broke open inside him like a seed. He hadn't spoken it aloud in weeks, maybe months. He'd kept it lodged behind his teeth, afraid it would cut him on the way out. The closet door handle turned a fraction on its own. Carl stared at it, unable to move, every rational part of him scrabbling for explanations like loose change at the bottom of a pocket. Draft, pipes, settling wood, grief hallucinations. Anything that didn't require him to rewrite the laws of living. The handle turned again, slower this time, as if guided by a small hand unsure of its strength. The door opened a crack. Carl Darkness breathed out, cool and smelling faintly of lavender detergent. Mira's scent, impossibly preserved. Carl's vision narrowed to that thin slice of black. In it, he thought he saw a glimmer. A pale curve, a bit of skin, the suggestion of an eye reflecting the hall light like an animal's. A whisper slipped through the crack, delicate as a thread. "Daddy," the word hit him with a physical force. His knees buckled and he caught himself against the dresser, the wood pressing into his ribs. The drawing fluttered from his fingers and landed face down on the rug. He could not breathe. The room tilted, edges sharpening, every sound amplified. The tiny hum of electricity in the lamp, the distant elevator cables groaning in the building's spine, the wet tick of rain. The closet door opened a little wider. Carl's mouth moved, but no sound came. His hands rose, trembling, reaching toward the gap the way you reach toward a candle flame even as you fear the burn. Something moved in the darkness, small and careful, as if deciding whether to step into the light. Carl leaned forward, tears spilling without permission, his heart tearing itself into new shapes as he finally began to understand, and the air between them tightened like a held breath, right before whatever came next. The darkness inside the closet shivered, and then a small shape edged forward. More presence than flesh, a child's outline woven from dim light and memory. Mira's hair hung in the same uneven bob, the same stubborn cowlick at her crown, and her eyes, too bright, too knowing, found his as if they'd never lost the habit. Carl's breath came in a broken gasp. "Mira," he managed, and this time the name didn't cut, it opened. "I tried," she whispered, voice like a page turning. "I kept knocking. You were always far away." He sank to his knees, palms pressed to the rug as if anchoring himself to the world. I thought if I didn't look, it wouldn't hurt." Mira stepped closer. The air cooled where she moved, scented with lavender and oranges. She lifted a hand, blue crayon hands, like in her drawing. And though his fingers met only a tender chill, the contact landed in him with the weight of truth. Not nothing, not imagination, a different kind of real. "It's okay," she said, solemn as she'd always been when she forgave him for things he didn't deserve to be forgiven for. "But you have to tell Mommy. She's lonely in the loud part." A sob tore free. He nodded, wiping his face with the heel of his hand like a boy. With shaking fingers, he grabbed his phone and typed, then hit call before he could lose courage. Lena answered on the second ring, voice guarded. "Carl?" "I'm coming," he said, and the words steadied him. "I'm sorry, I want to come to take you." Behind him, Mira's smile softened, luminous and small. She looked past him toward the hallway, toward the life waiting on the other side of grief. The closet door creaked gently, not closing, just resting, like it would always be there if he needed to listen. When he rose, Mira leaned in, her forehead nearly touching his. "Blue means lots of things," she murmured. "I know," he whispered. "I know now." He walked out of the room with the drawing in his hand, and as he flicked off the light, the smell of oranges followed him, bright as a promise.